This is the perfect video to open my channel with because it marks 20 years, almost to the day, since I first saw Cowboy Bebop and fell head over heels for the rascally crew of bounty hunters Spike, Jet, Faye, Ed, and Iron. I don't remember which I saw first, the film or the TV show, because the film was released internationally only 3 or 4 months prior to me discovering it. The TV show was first broadcast in 1998. I suspect I came across the TV show first and was pleasantly surprised to find that a film was also available to watch, because I do know that I didn't watch the movie in the theater, which I would have done if it was the other way around. Whatever the case, what's important is my 20-year-long relationship with Cowboy Bebop that's still going strong, evidenced in me hunting down the entire series of pop-up parade figures in the second-hand market to get them near or less than retail. Thankfully, I've never been an inbox collector. I've collected figures for over 12 years, so this is not my first figure of Spike Spiegel, the sardonic, trenchcoat-wearing, spiky-haired, chain-smoking, kung-fu fighting, gun-toting, spaceship-flying bounty hunter. But I'll cover those other figures in other videos, though I will mention that 2 of them are both much larger than this figure. So then why get this figure at all, you may be asking? Well, I got it because, as you will see from my future videos on this channel, though I collect figures in a variety of scales, my primary collection is focused around the 7-inch scale or 1/10 scale, what some refer to as art scale. Why 7-inch scale in particular, when I can get better detailed figures in the 1/6 or 1/4 scale? Well, it's a combination of factors. This size serves the purpose for the close-up distance at which I display them. They take up a lot less room, which allows me to display more of them. The selection is broad because there are many companies producing movie, TV, and anime figures in the 7-inch scale from a variety of IPs. And finally, the cost of each figure doesn't break the bank, while allowing for a wide and varied collection, especially if you buy the majority of them second-hand as I do. So when I came across the pop-up parade line, catering in my ideal scale, with all the major players of the Bebop crew present and accounted for, a set I'd been after from even before my collecting days, indeed when I first discovered back in the mid-2000s that Japan had figures available for most anime properties, the shock of it sent me to that dark place all us collectors fear, those rare moments of ecstasy that take a sudden turn to urgency and the blood rushing to your head as you black out. When I was awake, I found that 2 weeks had passed, during which I had made some questionable financial decisions to pick up the entire crew, blowing well past my monthly collection budget. I'm usually one to place orders slow and steady, so firing off multiple orders in abandon had me questioning my self-control. Was I ever really in control, I had to ask myself. We know that the hobby of collecting is a luxury, no matter what one collects. So to let it take control while I was merely a passenger did not feel good. It's been 3 months since. The entire set has been sitting under my bed in their original boxes, and it is only now, with the guilt receding in time, that I've been able to bring them out into the light, unpack them, and truly enjoy them. The reason I had bought them in the first place. Looking at these figures, I think it's all the more clear that the following needs to be stated. Cowboy Bebop, the original TV series and movie, was directed by Shinichiro Watanabe. The screenwriter was Keiko Nobumoto. The character designer was Toshihiro Kawamoto. The mechanical designer was Kimitoshi Yamane. And the composer was Yoko Kano. I make it a point to mention all 5 people because the show excels in each of these 5 aspects, which perhaps goes to answering why the show has the longevity it has possessed to this day, more than 25 years since its release. Cowboy Bebop is a sci-fi anime set in space featuring a team of bounty hunters chasing different bounties in every episode. The show lasted 26 half-hour episodes and an animated feature film. In this universe, bounty hunters are colloquially referred to as cowboys. We watch the formation of this band of bounty hunters one by one. And so it is for this video, where with one figure after another you will watch the complete set of Cowboy Bebop being assembled. This is the pop-up parade figure of Spike Spiegel. Released in August of 2022, it comes with an hexagonal base, which he attaches to using pegs sticking out the bottom of his shoes. So he cannot stand without the base. The pop-up parade figure stands 18 centimeters tall, from the bottom of his shoes to the tip of his hair, and has managed to capture Spike's likeness very well. Initially, when I had only the promotional images to go by, I wasn't convinced. But in hand, I can see the lens Good Smile, the company who has made the pop-up parade figures, has gone to in order to capture him in 3 dimensions. From the green tint in the highlights of his spiky hair that was present in the cel-painted animation, to the fine line work of his eyes and mouth, to the suit, which surprisingly is not a single shade of blue here, but a layering of various shades of blue and violet, giving it depth and texture. It comes across with a very subtle touch, not heavy-handed in the least. In fact, there's a chance you'll only notice it if you pick up the figure to examine it closely. Every fold in his suit and tapering trousers is crisply sculpted. I rate my figures out of 10, dividing the 10 into 4 categories of 2.5 points each. The first category is likeness, and as I've said, this is Spike, though I must admit that in this scale, the animation proportions reduce the size of his head and his features, which though small is well captured by the face-printed line work, which is almost lost until you look at him closely, particularly with a magnifying glass, which I have done, and I can reassure you that the detail is actually there. Now I can't fault the figure for its size, because it is a 7-inch scale figure. It would be like calling a greyhound too lean or a tribble too furry. So I'll only give the pop-up parade figure a 1.75 out of 2.5. The next category is detail, i.e. 1.25 for sculpt detail and 1.25 for paint detail. As much as I like the details in the folds, I do feel some edges, mainly the fabric of his shirt collar, could have been sharper and not as thick as his finger. So sculpt gets a 0.75. The layering of paint for his suit and hair are excellent. I do feel the shade of his skin needs to be a shade darker to be accurate, because as it stands, his skin tone matches Faye's, while in the anime he is clearly darker than her. So I rate it 1 out of 1.25. The third category is pose/articulation, i.e. pose if it's a statue and articulation if it's an action figure which will allow it to take the best poses. I like that it captures Spike's attitude. It feels vanilla until you see it from all angles. Then you get it. It's a simple museum pose, which is what the pop-up parade line goes for, and most importantly, it suits the character, so it gets the job done. However, I would still have preferred some dynamism rather than it being so static, so I will only give it a 2 out of 2.5. The final category is representation. That is, how special the figure is in terms of representing this character. Here I take into account other representations of the character in their original medium, be it in a film or TV series or comic book, and whether I feel this was not a waste of an opportunity. That is the main point of this category. And yes, it is completely subjective. The rating for this is entirely based on the present situation. It is entirely possible that Pop-Up Parade may release other variants of Spike, in which case this figure's rating in this category will increase, since it will make it a unique variant, catching a certain likeness rather than the character from the show in general. Now my 1/6 scale figure has the trench coat, so I don't mind that he is not wearing it here. But something that is missing from each of the 4 figures that I have of him is the cigarette in the corner of his mouth. But I get it. Nobody wants to promote smoking, and if I wanted to, I could always just customize it, which I may do at some point. Still, I already have him in his cool pose, so I would have liked something with him in a kung fu pose maybe, because I do feel that's missing from my collection. Though again, I could get my Play Car Arts figure of Spike into a kung fu kick. Now you see why this category is so subjective. And if you think that it is too subjective to be taken into account, hey, it's my figure in my collection. I think it matters. But again, it is my 4th Spike figure, so it suffers because it does not feel very special. Whereas the other 3 figures in the Pop-Up Parade line feel incredibly special, not only because they are the only representation I have of those characters in my collection, They are in the same scale, allowing them to be displayed together, which raises the value of the Spike figure twofold. I give it a 2.25 out of 2.5. So adding them up totals the score for this pop-up parade figure of Spike Spiegel to 7.75 out of 10. Oh, I don't know if I've been too generous with that rating, but what the hell, it is my first video. So let's begin on a positive note, right? Because at the end of the day, every time I look at this figure among the rest of my crew on my shelf, I hear those trumpets announcing the start of the Cowboy Bebop theme, and what more can I ask for? This is the pop-up parade figure of Jet Black, aka Black Dog. Released in August of 2022, it comes with an hexagonal base, which he attaches to using pegs sticking out the bottom of his shoes, so he cannot stand without the base. The pop-up parade figure stands approximately 18.3 centimeters tall, not including the base. Here there's a struggle for me in recognizing Jet. True, the voices are part and parcel with these figures, and you certainly feel a lacking without them, because the English dub, which was how I first saw it, is so pitch perfect for this show. You sometimes wish these characters came with audio snippets. I bring this up because at first I put my disappointment with this figure to it missing Jet's almost growling voice.
Don't whine!
But the more time has passed, the more I've realized that it's due to some misses in the design of the figure. I say design specifically because it is apparent that it is not due to them sparing expense with missing out a paint layer or two. Let me get to them by beginning to rate the figure. I rate my figures out of 10, dividing the 10 into 4 categories of 2.5 points each. The first category is likeness, and this is where this figure stumbles. I don't know whether it's because it's my first figure of Jet, so also my first viewing of the character in 3 dimensions. Unlike Spike, but I don't see Jet in the likeness of the head. All the elements that make up his face are present here, but they don't add up to Jet. Maybe Jet adjacent, but he's also far too young here. The rating in this category will be low, a mere 1 out of 2.5. I'll elaborate the reason for it in the course of the next 3 categories. The next category is detail, i.e. 1.25 for sculpt detail and 1.25 for paint detail. The sculpt detail highlights the areas where the design of the figure deviates from the character in the anime. There are few, barely a handful of issues to the credit of the designer or designers, but it is enough to get a drop in the score. First, the things they've gotten right. The details to his outfit are spot on. If I was only rating the accuracy of his suit, I would give it full marks because they've captured every single article of clothing, every strap, every seam, every piece of armor, even the logo on his back. Although as with Spike, they are a little heavy-handed with the toned edges of the collar, rather than having them in thin, tattered edges. But that is all I can complain about regarding the outfit. Comparing it to the anime, everything here is spot on. Unfortunately, the place where the details differ, albeit slightly, is in the most important part, the face. The shape to his muzzle, the area around the mouth, is off, giving him fuller cheeks, which make him look almost the same age as Spike, while he should be older. The spiky ends of the beard are also off their marks. The spike here should intersect with a metal piece on his right cheekbone, and his scar should run longer than it is above the eye, below it, and be just as deep. The differences are slight. As I've said, all the elements are there, and from certain angles, especially from above or below, the resemblance is much closer, and actually works. So if you are placing him on a shelf above or below your eye line, this figure can work. So I won't give him a low rating. I am disappointed, that has to be said, but I am not crushed, and I don't feel it was a loss by any means. For sculpt detail, I'll give it a rating of 1 out of 1.25. The paint detail is good with this figure, for the most part. Every item is colored accurately, for which I applaud the design. Even these buttons on the collar are given a gold, despite being hardly visible here. However, it stumbles in 3 minor areas, which reasonably speaking could have significantly improved the overall appearance of the figure. The first is Jet's robotic arm. It is rendered here in matte, though the show makes it clear that the surface has a sheen, either gloss-coated or metallic. The second is the skin color. In the anime, Jet is noticeably a different shade from Spike, Though standing the figures side by side here, you'd be forgiven for thinking they were the same skin tone. I do feel that if they had gotten his skin color right, it would have gone a long way in working for the immediate recognition of the character on the shelf that all us collectors crave. The third is the details in the face. First and foremost, the scar should be dark enough to have its entire length prominent. There is a gap in the metallic silver paint of the metal piece on his cheekbone. There's sculpt detail around his mouth, but they are lost unless you light him just right. Interestingly, they have given the figure an almost imperceptibly darker shading around the grumpy mouth. But what it could have really used was the help of some additional lines to underscore the frown lines. After all, they have anyway added such lines around his eyes, so it wouldn't have been out of place. His hair and beard in the anime is highlighted with dark brown, just as Spike's has green. Here his hair and beard are a solid dark grey. Finally, the tattered collar green is done sloppily. Sloppy in comparison to the rest of it. So in actual terms, it is not very sloppy, though it sticks out like a sore thumb around the rest of the fine work. I have to penalize the figure for the wrong skin color, which is a major factor for me. I intend to do some repainting on it, though at a later date, because I can see how this figure could easily have been great with those corrections, and also with a slight highlight to the hair similar to Spike's. All these issues reduce the score to 0.75. The third category is pose/articulation, i.e. pose if it's a statue and articulation for an action figure which allows the best poses. I am not thrilled by the pose they've given Jet here. The truth is, I don't know whether it is the fault of the pose that makes his torso look odd, his pecs look enormous, he's not this jacked in the series, or is it the odd shape they've given his pecs that's throwing the pose out of whack. Either way, it does not work. From the front, the box of his ribcage seems entirely absent. Again, it could be the pose that is transforming his body that way, but it does not work. On top of that, I don't recall seeing Jet in this pose in the show. I rewatched some episodes from the show recently and didn't see it in any of those. The matter is made worse by his side eye, limiting posing options to a narrow degree. So my rating is only 1 out of 2.5 for this figure. The final category is representation. That is how special the figure is in terms of representing this character. Here I take into account other representations of the character in their original medium, be it in a film or TV series or comic book, and whether I feel this was not a waste of an opportunity. That is the main point of this category, and yes, it is completely subjective. Jet is almost always seen in this outfit, which they have done a good job in replicating. My issues are with his likeness, slight body issue combined with the lackluster pose. I understand they were going for a pose showing him getting ready for action, but why, when every one of the others in the set, Spike, Faye, Ed and Ayn included, are in relaxed poses, actually smiling? This is meant to be a set and he sticks out. However, he is also my only representation of Jet in my collection, so I'm giving him a rating of 1.5 out of 2.5. That makes for a total score for the pop-up parade figure of Jet Black of 5.25 out of 10 points. I didn't realize the score would be that low, especially after giving Spike 7.75. I am a huge fan of the Jet character and I would love to have had him in any of a number of other more suitable poses. Don't get me wrong, this is fine. It just does not spark anything in me other than the satisfaction of having him finally in my collection and also completing the team. I will definitely be customizing this figure because Jet deserves better. I'll repaint the robot arm, redo his skin color, and also some of the details on his face. Maybe even turn that frown upside down. I'll do a before and after video when I'm done to see if a better figure was possible from what they have here. But for the meantime, seen from a distance on my upper shelf, it works just fine, and I am very pleased to see Jet Black present and accounted for. This is the pop-up parade figure of Faye Valentine. Released in October of 2022, it comes with an hexagonal base, which she attaches to using pegs sticking out the bottom of her right shoe. So she can't stand without the base. The pop-up parade figure stands approximately 17.5 centimeters tall, not including the base, and here there is an instance of me needing to get used to her 3D representation. The gold was surprising because I never realized Faye was wearing a gold outfit in all these years of watching the show. I always thought it was a glossy plastic yellow. There are times when gold items are shown and they look different from her outfit, so I'm still not sure how accurate this is. If it is canon, then I'll accept it, of course. And in truth, now that I've had a chance to live with it for a while, I'm having less of a problem with it. I don't know. I may change my mind at some point and repaint in yellow just to have it match my image of her in the team. I rate my figures out of 10, dividing the 10 into 4 categories of 2.5 points each. The first category is lightness, and while this figure does not scream Faye, after watching an episode to compare the figure against, I have to admit that it is Faye. This is oddly not the flirty Faye, or the goofy Faye, or the mischievous Faye, or the angry Faye. This is the soft version of her, loading her gun and turning around asking, "Oh, were you looking for me?" So yes, that is true to an aspect of Faye, and it does suit the tone of the majority of the pop-up parade set of Cowboy Bebop figures in a friendly, almost family picture setting. All except Jet, of course, who for some reason is looking away glumly, when those who know the show well will agree that he will most likely be the most pleased in such a familial setting. I'll rate this figure 2 out of 2.5 for likeness. The next category is detail, i.e. 1.25 for sculpt detail and 1.25 for paint detail. This figure shines in the sculpt detail. Literally, I suppose, thanks to the gold paint. Faye is often shown as skinny in the anime. Although a lot of fan art depicts her as curvy, she is more meant to be athletic, and they get that right with this figure. She is a 23-year-old young woman out of her time, without a past, in a dog-eat-dog universe, and I get that. Again, as with Spike and Jet, I would have preferred if the edges of the collar were sharper. But otherwise her outfit is rendered well. The parts that need wrinkles brim with them. The parts that need to be stretched taut are smooth and reflective to boot. There are some other outfits she's worn in the series I would love to see her in figure form. The body underneath the suit is, as I've said, true to Faye. There are lovely touches of anatomical detail that adds rather than distracts. Little wrinkles pinch her stockings. Her straight-cut hair bristles with sharply defined strands that give it a sense of movement. The jacket she has tied around her torso floats behind her, a little unnaturally, though it can be forgiven if seen as lobbing in the air as she's turning. I rate the sculpt detail 1 out of 1.25. Next is paint detail, and here I have a couple of issues. I've already mentioned the gold, which isn't as much of a deal breaker as I supposed when I first saw the pictures of her online. My main issue is with the red of the jacket. It is strange that after Spike and Jet, and here too where the design team at Good Smile and Pop-Up Parade has gone the extra mile to be faithful to the original art in the anime, here with Faye we get these artistic flourishes to her costume. First the gold of her outfit, then the darker shade of red to the jacket, when in the anime it is a bright red. Then her skin tone should be a smidge brighter because she's shown as very pale in the anime. The stockings look accurate with dashes of shading around her knees. The shoes and socks are a powder blue, which is accurate to the show as well. Strangely, in some online sources they are described as white, though I've checked the show and they are this shade of light blue. The color of her hairband is not constant shot to shot in the anime, with slight variations, but they seem to have settled on a nice average here. Finally, we have the details of her face. Her emerald green eyes are printed sharply and vibrant. I do feel her lips could be a tad deeper in their red to match the anime. I left the hair for last because it is lovely, with a variety of shades for highlights and shading to capture the purple just right. I rate the paint detail 1 out of 1.25. The third category is pose/articulation, i.e. pose if it's a statue and articulation if it's an action figure to allow the best poses. It is a nice museum pose, capturing her entire body in motion, which I prefer, no matter how slight, rather than simply posing. So I definitely rate this higher than Spike or Jet. With her half turned, it gives a view of her entire body, and she can be viewed from multiple angles. The use of her left leg, with it being raised using just the toe for support, lends her a daintiness that Faye rarely reveals to strangers. I give it a rating of 1.25 out of 2.5. The final category is representation. That is how special the figure is in terms of representing this character. Here I take into account other representations of the character in their original medium, be it in a film or TV series or comic book, and whether I feel this was not a waste of an opportunity. That is the main point of this category. And yes, it is completely subjective. There are other poses I would like to have seen Faye in, but for now this is my only figure of Faye in my collection, and it helps complete my Cowboy Bebop crew. There's nothing glaringly out of place, so until I can find an ideal 1/6 scale to accompany my spike, which may take some time, I'm very happy to have this figure fill her place that has been waiting for her these past 20 years since I first watched the series. I rate it 2 out of 2.5. And that brings about a total score of 8.25 out of 10. It got a high score mainly because of how long I've been trying to get a good figure of Faye that would match my spike. It's a huge relief, that's the best way I can describe it, when I as a collector get something that I've been seeking out for a very long time. According to the in-story timeline, Faye would be 19 now in Singapore. She'll have an accident next year and then be in suspended animation for 54 years before being reawakened in the time of Cowboy Bebop. So the Faye who's alive now is a very different person from the Faye we all know. And I wonder what she's like. This is the pop-up parade figure of Ed, aka Edward Wong, aka Radical Edward, and Ein. Released in October of 2022, it comes with an hexagonal base, which she attaches to using pegs sticking out the bottom of her left foot. So she can't stand without the base. The pop-up parade figure stands approximately 14.3 centimeters tall, not including the base, and in this case the character jumps right off the figure. Perhaps because she is such a cartoony character in the show, it made her features that much easier to capture. I rate my figures out of 10, dividing the 10 into 4 categories of 2.5 points each. The first category is likeness, and as I've said, this figure is Ed, and she's carrying Ein. There's no doubt in my mind when I look at them, so I'll rate this figure 2.25 out of 2.5 for likeness. The next category is detail, i.e. 1.25 for sculpt detail and 1.25 for paint detail. Interestingly, this is the first figure of the set to have seam lines visible. There are 2 and they are both obvious, and they are both on Ein. Oh, actually there's one more in Ed's hair, though it loses itself among the spikes. Ed is sculpted very well, and she does make for a relatively simple figure in her tank top and bicycle shorts. I do wish the fabric of her top was thinner. The highlight in Ed's sculpt work is the way her gangly legs are captured mid one of her kicked out strides. The only figure with her toes visible, they are each finely defined. Ein, on the other hand, is slightly problematic. While they've captured Ed's energy, they have missed the mark with the corgi. He looks like a corgi, he looks like Ein in the face, but there's no detail to his fur. He looks like a duffel bag she's just picked up. Besides that, they've captured his collar and name tag, so they haven't missed any of the vital details. Ein, unfortunately, brings the score down for Ed, so I rate the sculpt detail 0.75 out of 1.25. Next is paint detail. Ed is well executed with her blushing cheeks. I do have to note that there is no shading on her entire outfit or even her hair. However, the gloss of the bicycle shorts was necessary and works very well to match the anime. It seems they saved the shading for her legs because there's some at her knees and also on her feet, especially her toes, making the details really pop. The problem is her skin tone is all wrong. In the series, she's clearly the darkest among the entire crew, and it's just not reflected here. Moving on to her eyes, thankfully, is a different story. The color and detail is accurate. The green lenses of her goggles on her head do have some gloss to them, though they could have done with more to give more of a glassy sheen. Then we come to Ein, and once more, as with the sculpt, Ein lets Ed down. There's no shading at all to his fur, just solid blobs of brown and white. The red and the gold of the collar really pops among them though, and the details of the line of his mouth and nose and especially his eyes is very well done. If only his fur had some depth to it, and the shading would have also helped hide those nasty seams. Together, I rate the paint detail 0.75 out of 1.25. The third category is pose/articulation, i.e. pose if it's a statue and articulation if it's an action figure which will allow its best pose. Once again, as with Faye, Ed is captured in motion, not only mid-stride but carrying Ayn, and Ayn once again is where the figure suffers, because he is sitting in her arms like a stuffed toy. The only life to him is the turn of his head to look at us. If his legs had some animation to them, the figure would have been ideal, but as it is, I give it only a rating of 1.75 out of 2.5. The final category is representation. That is how special the figure is in terms of representing this character. Here I take into account other representations of the character in their original medium, be it in a film or TV series or comic book, and whether I feel this was not a waste of an opportunity. That is the main point of this category, and yes, it is completely subjective. It works very well for me that Ed and Ayn are together. It works for the figure. It's faithful to the show. It works for my set, because I only had to get one figure to get two characters. I would have hated to have left Ayn out, so having him in there raises the rating significantly. I like Ed all in all. She is in her outfit, she has her iconic goggles, she is doing the Ed walk, she is with Ayn. The only thing missing for her would be some computer knick-knack, but I can add those by her feet later. The only issue is in how they chose to depict Ayn, which lets the figure down. But it still has so many positives. It is ideal that he is being carried, or else he would have simply been standing on the ground beside her, and I preferred this. There were a few times when I almost picked up versions of Ayn in one size or another, but I never did because it never suited anything else that I had. I'm very happy to have them to complete the set. 20 years and it's done. I rate it 2 out of 2.5, and that brings about a total score of 7.5 out of 10. They make a great pair, and I remember being so sad when they left the crew, so it's wonderful to have them back to complete the team once more, as it's meant to be. Looking over all the scores, we have Faye at first place with 8.25, a good lead ahead of Spike with 7.75. Ed and Ayn are close behind with 7.5, with Jet bringing up the rear at a distant 5.25 out of 10. I may have been a little too harsh with Jet, but as of now, these are my thoughts on the figures. The best part of the set is that the makers were faithful to their differences in height, so together the set makes a scene right out of the show. If they had only released one or two of them, I know for a fact that I wouldn't have gone after them as I did. There are other characters too, of course, that could be included as figures down the line, mainly Vicious and Julia. Any others would be welcome, of course, though in truth, even if they don't come, I am satisfied just having the entire main crew. I overspent on them as it was, but having said that, I am content with this set. Cowboy Bebop, the anime and movie, was something special, not only for me. It's often imitated rarely successfully, and it will live on for many more years yet, with new audiences constantly discovering it, because like anything great that itself was born out of the influences of those that came before it, it has become what any true piece of art aspires to be, an original.